This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast is brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Listeners of this podcast can save 30% off the first year of an annual subscription by going and visiting theathletic.com/DSP. Don't miss out on great in-depth features, behind-the-scenes reporting. They do something different than the traditional newspapers. So definitely become a subscriber like the rest of us here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network staff. Go check out theathletic.com/DSP.
Oh my God!
Everybody to episode 41 of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. On this week's episode, we've got a ton of news notes, and legitimately, I really do mean it. We have a ton of news notes. We've got a former tag team champion, a recent tag team champion, actually, to possibly retiring. A couple news and notes on injuries. New Japan is going after a couple of WWE wrestlers instead of WWE, going after a couple New Japan guys. Of course, we're going to review Raw and Smackdown, and doing it with me, he is my co-hostess with the mostest. He is a guy who I know has got something dialed up for all of us, and it's going to be awesome. He is my Marty Jannetty to my Rockers. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. Oh, I love you. I love you so much. I just want to rip my shirt off.
Fight for what's right. Fight for your life.
Oh, I love this song.
Man, we were teased. If Hulk Hogan tweeted he was going to be in Miami, so my ass was glued. I'm like, I ain't missing it. I ain't missing a segment. I watched Raw. It was a B show. Look, I'm not bearing the lead, but it was okay. It wasn't terrible. I wanted to see Hulk Hogan come out. He tweeted, I'm going to be in Miami. Why not come out? Just sit in the crowd, do something. He wasn't there.
Dude, next time you're going to play the show, let me know, and I'm going to wear a shirt that I can just rip off, and we can videotape it.
Yes. But,
dude,
he wasn't there.
I loved... When I was a kid, that was like my favorite entrance song. I would get up, I'd run around, I'd sit there, I'd hulk up, I'd sit there, wave to the crowd to get the magic ear going. I'd drop a leg drop on my sister's head. She'd go crying. My dad would come and whip my ass. It was madness.
What? The way I look at Raw was they benefited from not being awful. It wasn't awful. It was enjoyable.
No, yes.
But, and I was thinking to myself, okay.
You know what made it enjoyable? There was one giant story arc that was weaved through the entire program that had a payoff. That's why it wasn't awful. But overall, it was subpar.
And that's the way I want to look at it is to say, how could we have improved this? And I kept saying to myself, signature moments. What are the signature moments on Raw that you would say, oh, okay, did Brock Lesnar come out and destroy the place? Did he say something? Roman Reigns using the B word, fine, but he's done that before in promos versus Brock Lesnar. What I would say is when they start writing it, no words, just build around signature moments like, okay, 8:45, signature moment, 9:45, signature moment, closing. You got to have at least 2 signature moments every 3-hour show that people are going to talk about because there's just too many avenues of critiques on Monday Night Raw, starting with the opening segment. It wasn't as long as it could have been, but in the end, you had Roman Reigns talking to Paul Heyman, and he said, look, bring out Brock Lesnar. I'm ready to do this. In the end, I'm going to send, Roman Reigns said, I'm going to send Brock Lesnar back to the UFC as my bitch. It was okay.
It was okay. That's what it was. And this thing with Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman, Kurt Angle, this storyline was what was weaved through the entire show and culminated at the end, and we'll get to that in a moment. I thought the promo was okay. Finn Balor, Baron Corbin, they have really good matches. Corbin now gets the win. What does that mean for Finn Balor? Because he just won at the pay-per-view, so again, 50-50 booking.
Right.
Nobody's really getting over here, and I'm not really sure what this does for either guy. It really, at this point, to me, feels like Finn's maybe a mid-card guy, maybe an upper mid-card guy.
Right, exactly.
This was your inaugural WWE Universal Galactic Champion.
All right, so nobody's impressed with what this feud has done for both guys, and just let's move on. The one thing about Raw that impressed me was the emergence of Alicia Fox. I like her character. I felt like she was intense. I felt like she had a decent match, and I like the way that she's kind of taken some attention with Alexa Bliss. I liked it. I like the fact that Alicia Fox will fight Ronda Rousey next Monday, teaser on Monday Night Raw in Jacksonville. I liked it all the way around. I'm like, you know what? If they can just kind of tweak it a little bit where she's less crazy and a little bit more intense, I kept saying to myself, you know what? If Alicia Fox kind of did her hair similar to Ronda Rousey and kind of came out as a badass looking chick, I would buy it a lot more. The craziness is not...
Yeah, don't need the crazy.
Don't need the crazy. I need the intensity.
Yes.
I like intense Alicia Fox. Could do something there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I found it weird, though, because this was supposed to be a natty Alicia Fox match, and it really felt like it was a continuation and a build for Ronda and Alexa Bliss, and I think that's what they wanted to do, but what are you doing with the girls in the ring? They should be the one telling the story, and it didn't really seem like that's where the story was. It felt like the story was on the outside of the ring, so a little bit weird there. The Revival end up beating the Woken Warriors. Now, we're going to talk about this later on in the news and notes segment, but I'm not really sure what's going on with Matt Hardy right now. As far as the Woken Warriors go, it seems like Bray Wyatt's gimmick has infiltrated whatever the Woken Warriors were or are, and it seems like Hardy is maybe taking a step into the background here. This seems more Bray than Matt as a whole. What do you think about this? Do you like this? Is it weird to you? Do you see this team going anywhere right now?
It's interesting the way they're being utilized and packaged. It doesn't seem like they have the same steam that they had coming out of WrestleMania with the champion. It seems like, okay, the B team has it, but it doesn't seem like, again, something's missing. Maybe they need one more additional piece. Maybe they need Jeff Hardy. It just seems like, as a whole, it doesn't seem exactly connecting as it should, right?
Right.
It doesn't seem like it's connecting. It seems like, okay, we did it. It peaked. That's the best way to put it. It peaked, and maybe now it's time to fizzle out and go somewhere else.
Yeah. Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre have another great match.
Yes.
This one gets broken up by Dolph Ziggler. So all this is kind of working and culminating, and this is supposed to be this build to SummerSlam. Every time Seth and Drew or Seth and Dolph get into a match, one of the other guys, whoever's not in that match, seems to interfere, which leads me to this. Would you be surprised if at SummerSlam we get a tag match or we get a surprise return? Maybe Dean Ambrose comes back.
That makes sense. That's the way I'm looking at it exactly. It seems like they're leading up to the fact that, okay, Drew McIntyre, Dolph Ziggler, they keep getting over on these guys, and definitely they're not going to have Roman Reigns step in too often because they want Seth Rollins to continue to have this amazing push. But right now, Seth is a top guy, and however he needs to get over, I don't know how you can do it where he gets the belt, but I'm not sure because I do think he needs a title. He's performing. That's a guy that needs a title.
Don't you feel like he should be a guy who maybe should be next in line or next
main
in
event, yeah.
The
night in, night out, when he's out there, from his entrance to his promo to the in-ring work.
He's got the best in-ring work, man.
Perfect package. He's got it all, and so he's now ready for the big time. I'm talking about AJ Styles. I'm talking about Samoa Joe. I'm talking about big-time feuds. He needs to be up there, by the work he did with Finn Balor, by the work that he's doing now, the matches that he's having with Dolph Ziggler. You got to showcase Seth Rollins a lot more, and I hope that they take advantage of a guy right now in his prime doing great things.
Yeah, they really need to. They really should. Before we move on to the main event and what was obviously the best part of Raw, is there anything else that really caught your eye or that you were really interested in this week's Raw?
I love the fact that they had Roman Reigns taken out, and then you got Baron Corbin giving that smirk, and then he got popped.
I love the punch.
That punch was great. It was executed.
Glad you brought that up.
Yeah, it was cool. It was interesting. I didn't like the way that Brock Lesnar is being now utilized as a guy that is anti-Paul Heyman. I think that it's a big mistake. Paul Heyman's a good mouthpiece.
Before you get into that, let me build that, okay?
Yeah.
So the best part of Raw comes around.
Yes.
So this entire show basically built around Brock Lesnar coming out to the ring. Kurt Angle basically put down an ultimatum that Brock Lesnar has to appear in the ring at least for a few minutes, and then he can go on his merry way. If he does not, then Paul Heyman will be fired. So Paul Heyman, at different points throughout the entire episode, is trying to negotiate with Kurt Angle, trying to negotiate and coerce Brock Lesnar into going out there. In the end, Paul Heyman, Kurt Angle, and Baron Corbin are out in the ring, just sitting there basically talking. And Paul Heyman cuts a promo where he is basically begging Kurt Angle to not fire him, and he agrees with Kurt Angle, who calls Brock Lesnar the worst WWE Universal Champion ever, which I thought was great. Thought it was awesome.
Yeah.
In the end, Brock Lesnar comes out, F5s Kurt Angle, and then he continues to choke out Paul Heyman.
Now, we know why this is happening, because they want to make Brock Lesnar the heel so that people cheer Roman Reigns.
Were you surprised by the crowd's reaction?
I do think they're doing a good job of it because of how great a character Brock Lesnar is.
Yeah.
He can be a heel. He can be...
The crowd chanted, "We want Roman,"
exactly.
which blew my mind.
That was crazy, right? Because that's what they want, is that they don't really want Roman to win, but they just want to see Brock Lesnar lose, which is a great sign of a guy that you go, you know what? That's a guy who's money, is that you either want him to win if they're promoting him as a face, or you just want him to lose so bad that you would even cheer a guy like Roman Reigns. But in the end, I look at it and I go, just have the match, but play it up in reverse. Just have Roman Reigns be dirty. Have Roman Reigns do some things that would be heelish in nature. Just go out there and destroy Paul Heyman. Throw him through a table. Start picking at Brock Lesnar in a different way. Start calling him out. Have DC in your corner. Have, something little different out there to kind of promote and pick at Brock Lesnar. But in the end, they're just doing another build-up. It seems to me, though, the good thing is, though, I know people think for sure it's going to be Roman Reigns walking away with the title. Part of me still thinks that, ride it out. I still think that let Brock Lesnar continue to overcome odds and be the champion, maybe even the Survivor Series. Why? I don't see it.
Holy cow.
I think it could happen. I think that Brock Lesnar just looks good as a champion. Look at him. When he's out there, the way they've done it, he's an attraction.
He looks much leaner. You can tell he's off the steroids.
Yeah, something's off. Yeah.
But do you think that Paul Heyman will turn on Lesnar at SummerSlam, especially after what we've seen? And maybe he sides with Roman Reigns, or maybe he sides with a guy like Braun Strowman.
Potentially.
Braun Strowman, I think, could be a guy who Paul Heyman would just kind of gravitate towards and could do a lot with. It would be interesting. I wonder if Roman Reigns would get over more with Paul Heyman at his side. What do you think about that?
Paul Heyman's just a great character, man. When he's out there, you want to listen to him talk. You want to hear, you want to see what he's going to do in terms of when he's out there. He's just that great a character. But in the end, I still see this all being a ruse, and Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman united front, baby. Keep it going. Keep it going.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens when we get to SummerSlam.
Now we go to Smackdown, and it was an interesting show, to say the least.
It was very interesting. A lot of promos and not a lot of wrestling.
Yeah, exactly.
But we start off with a Becky Lynch promo where Carmella comes out. She cuts a face promo before she turns on Becky. Then Charlotte returns and makes the save. So a couple things coming out of this first segment. And I thought this was a very good first segment.
Very good.
This is something that had a little bit of everything. It had some intrigue. It had some build. You had the return of Charlotte Flair. You had a little bit of action, which set up everything for the entire night. One, were you impressed by Carmella's face promo before she turned on Becky? Because I thought it was exceptional.
I thought it was exceptional as well. I thought, okay, now you have a chance.
She's got great range.
She teased the fact that it was going to be James Ellsworth coming out, and then she was able to handle some business and elevate the feud a little bit with Becky. Charlotte coming in kind of, I guess, takes away a little bit of the luster of that feud, because I at first thought Becky could be somebody to take the title off of Carmella. Now you introduce Charlotte, makes me think, well, she's going to be the one winning.
And I hate this.
Right,
I absolutely hate this, because I was loving the Becky push, and I was totally on board for the Becky push, and I got behind Becky becoming the next women's champion on SmackDown, and I loved it. Now you introduce Charlotte. It's now going to be a three-way match at SummerSlam with Charlotte, Becky, and Carmella. And all of a sudden, I'm not as interested in this match at all. I don't
felt the same thing. It's like you introduced the third character, didn't need it.
Exactly. And at this point, I think the belt's going to end up back on Charlotte, because it's just like hitting the default. Like, what are we going to do with our women's championship? Let's put it back on Charlotte. Okay, cool. We've already seen her with it. It's like when her and Sasha Banks kept trading it back and forth on Raw. We got tired of it. We're like, nobody gives a crap anymore about this. I really felt like Becky was going to help save the women's division on SmackDown, and I thought it was going to be a great match at SummerSlam, because Carmella's best match so far has been against Becky Lynch. It was last week. It was great. And I was really looking, and I was getting invested in this build. Like, I have not gotten invested in just about anything else WWE has put out. So, leads me to this. The whole entire episode, we talked about how Becky and Charlotte are best friends. Becky and Charlotte are best friends. Becky and Charlotte are best friends. Does Becky turn heel on Charlotte, her best friend?
That would be something to infuse some energy into that character. But I think that Becky...
But I think she has enough as it is.
She does have enough, but sometimes a heel turn might be something that gets people talking a little bit more. Maybe just enough to get to the point where she could win a title. But right now, Becky is kind of in limbo a little bit. Mm-hmm. That's a tough thing. I feel
like she totally got knocked down 3 pegs because Charlotte showed back up.
Exactly.
Which is unfortunate.
It's unfortunate.
Talking about infusing something into a character, we have Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. That's set for SummerSlam, all right? Daniel Bryan's in the ring. He's basically cutting a promo on The Miz. And The Miz kind of points something out. Doesn't seem like Daniel Bryan is as over as he used to be. There's not this intensity with Daniel Bryan anymore. Do you remember when they had Talking Smack and The Miz got in Daniel Bryan's face and they were really going at it, and DB basically got up and just walked off set because it was about to come to blows? And ever since then, there was this intensity. There was this fire in Daniel Bryan. And whenever it came to The Miz, they would just butt heads and you couldn't wait for the payoff. It seems like, to me at least, Daniel Bryan's intensity is lacking.
It's one of those things when you watch wrestlers, it's hard, man, when you've done it 4, 5, 6 years, 7 years, to bring it every night, 300 nights a year. So I can understand where you're coming from. I'm seeing it as well. And plus, too, he's also supplementing his income on television. He's realizing, you know what? There's probably an easier way to make money than get my brains beat in. Mm-hmm. And he's come out and said that I've given WWE like 50 ideas with my character and they come back with something totally different. And so what you're sensing is that
he's frustrated.
Daniel Bryan probably is not as 100% as passionate about the work as he used to be. Now, is he passionate? Of course. Does he want to entertain the fan? Of course. But what happens is when you're not the boss, when you're not Triple H who's cashing in stocks for $160 million, when you're not the guy behind the scenes making everything happen, when you go to talk about your character and they come back and you look at it and you're like, really? This again? This is how I'm being promoted? It kind of starts to show a little bit in your in-ring work, and that's what's happening with Daniel Bryan. But looking at that segment, I thought it was a decent segment in terms of, okay, now we're going to have Daniel Bryan versus The Miz at SummerSlam. I'm fascinated to see what kind of match these guys are going to have, who's going to be deserving of getting over. I'm fascinated by this matchup. Look, Daniel Bryan's going to have time, because you got to remember, in a build-up, you can't just spew it all out right away. You got to have build-up. And right now, The Miz is getting a little bit over in terms of attacks on Daniel Bryan. But pretty soon, you'll see the intense guy that we all know.
I hope
and see.
So.
I do think you're going to see it.
I need to see more, because now it's really falling flat for me. All right. So now we move on to
violence.
Yeah. Like, I don't know any other way to put this. Like, Randy Orton, this reincarnation of Randy Orton, it's so angry. It's so in your face. It's basically punch you in the mouth until you bleed. Randy Orton comes out and dismantles Jeff Hardy with a little bit of an assist from Nakamura. He basically took every personal artifact that is symbolic with Jeff Hardy, took it off of him. Jeff Hardy wears a necklace with his little symbol on it, rips that off. Has armbands, rips those off, rips his shirt off. Goes so far as to get a water bottle, splash Jeff Hardy in the face after doing 2 draping DDTs, one onto the concrete floor on the outside of the ring, starts to rub the makeup off of Jeff Hardy's face. It's like he wants to take the character away from Jeff Hardy. This is so interesting to me, and I'm so fascinated by this reincarnation of Randy Orton. Randy Orton, for the longest time, has been super boring to me.
Yeah.
And I've just kind of, he's been on screen. I've just tuned him out.
Not boring.
Yes.
Put it in bold. Yep, not boring.
And I'm so invested in this Randy Orton character. Exactly. I love this.
Now, on the other token, I was quite surprised at AJ Styles not being there and then Samoa Joe's promo, because Samoa Joe has come to the table with a series of promos that have just been like, ding, ding, winner, winner, perfect, perfect. This promo, I felt like lacked a little bit. It was kind of cookie cutter, like right to the point, and it didn't do enough for me to start the build. And I do think that with this situation with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, you need them both together bouncing ideas off of each other. I think that this promo, for me and how I took it, kind of fell flat. I didn't like it.
Oh, really? See, I love this promo. It wasn't as intense as Samoa Joe's promos usually are, but I liked how he kind of laid the groundwork. Basically saying, look, AJ, you've been champion for way too long. Your family misses you. Your kids miss you. Your wife misses you. They're going to be rooting for you to lose to me at SummerSlam. I'm taking that strap from you, and then you can go back to being the family man. There's something about Samoa Joe and his promos. They're so cerebral. Like when he's laying them out there and he's talking to you, it's like there's always something else going on. He's working some angle, and you could tell he's working an angle, and you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go along with the ride. I want to see where we're going with this, and you're really invested in it. I thought it was great. You're right. It wasn't as intense as normal, but I thought it was good because I think you don't need to punch me in the face all the time with your promo. Sometimes give me a little bit of something different, and then kind of bring me along for the ride. I think that's what he did with this.
Build me a case as to why Samoa Joe would be a believable WWE champion, because that's the job of the WWE, is to build up this character. Now, Samoa Joe has suffered a little bit from being injured, which kind of derailed some of his momentum, but his fights versus Brock Lesnar were believable. I mean, in the last 2 years, do you remember a feud, that really stuck with Brock Lesnar other than maybe Braun Strowman? Samoa Joe had the best match with him. I mean, AJ Styles obviously had a great match in terms of the fact that he took so many bumps, but I remember Samoa Joe in the ring with Brock Lesnar because it was believable. He stood there in the ring with the Beast incarnate, and it looked believable. Is there a case for, putting the title on Samoa Joe and what he could do as the guy? Because remember, the guy that gets the belt is the perceived number one guy, the draw, the guy that makes the most money, the guy that you build promos after, the guy that you send out to the road and build the brand. I just can't see it right now in my mind that Samoa Joe's the guy.
See, I think what you can do here is if you do a belt switch at SummerSlam, I think there might be more money in AJ Styles chasing Samoa Joe. And the reason I say that, Samoa Joe in the ring is one of the top 5 workers in the company. Samoa Joe on the mic, one of the top 5 promos in the company. I think he's better than AJ Styles. All right, a lot of people love AJ Styles. I think AJ Styles' mic work is sometimes lacking. Samoa Joe is one of the most believable wrestlers in the ring. He's so intense. He's so fierce. I think you put the belt on your main heel, one of your monster heels, all right? Let him run with it, and now you've got AJ Styles, who is maybe desperate, maybe a little bit taken off guard, and now he's more calculated, and now he's trying to figure out and trying to scrap his way back to getting where he was. I think there might be more money with AJ Styles chasing Samoa Joe to WrestleMania for the belt, where he can reclaim it there again and have his actual WrestleMania moment.
Okay, interesting stuff. I'm going to look to see how Samoa Joe takes the mantle with this feud because it's important. SummerSlam's big. It's major.
Yes, it's huge.
And so AJ Styles come back because any show without you just has a little bit less star power than what I would like. In your mind, sir, which show was better?
I thought Raw did a really nice job of highlighting a storyline. And then they just kind of had filler all the way around it. Nothing really got me invested but the one storyline.
No signature moments.
As for SmackDown, I think SmackDown gave you much less wrestling. It was very light on wrestling this week.
Yep.
But I think you had a lot of good promos, and the matches that you had were very good. So I think SmackDown wins it.
SmackDown, no doubt about it, was the better show. I definitely enjoyed Raw, but it's suffering from the lack of intense moments, the lack of moments where you go, oh, let's talk about that. It's like, okay, it's not as bad, which is a start. But yeah, SmackDown's a lot better in terms of some of the angles and some of the matches that we're starting to see form for SummerSlam. A little bit tilted in the favor of SmackDown.
Before we move on, I wanted to bring this up last week. I totally slipped my mind. I am really impressed with Paige and her role on SmackDown as the commissioner.
She's emerged very well.
I think she's done an exceptional job. I think she's awesome at it. I find her to be not only funny, but entertaining. I find her to be very believable in her role. I really enjoy her in this role right now. I think she's awesome at it. I just wanted to bring that up because I wanted to touch on it last week, forgot about it, so I thought now was a good time to do it.
Hit me with this week's news and notes. Holy cow, sir. You got a bunch, I think.
Got a ton of stuff to talk about. All right, so Sunday was a very, very sad day in wrestling. Nikolai Volkov, Brian Christopher, also known as Brian Lawler, Jerry the King Lawler's son, Brickhouse Brown, and Tracy Goodell, the co-founder of Omega Wrestling and the father of Trevor Lee, who's in Impact, All of those guys passed away on Sunday. So a very, very sad day for wrestling. Very devastating. It's now official. Nikki Bella and John Cena are now officially done. Nikki has moved all of her stuff out of John's house. And it is pretty apparent whatever took place a few months ago with them working on getting back together was all just kind of an angle to get viewers to watch E's Total Bellas because their ratings were down.
It's quite obvious that, the life of a wrestler is hard for a relationship. Mm-hmm. You're not in the same city. You're different. Once you break up the first time, things kind of change in the dynamic. And unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be. Nikki and John are now officially done.
You watch Total Bellas, right?
I watched the whole thing,
okay.
Yes.
So is John Cena... How much of what you see on screen with John Cena is John Cena?
Most of it was last season. This season was a little bit more produced. You could tell he's trying to act good.
So he's pretty neurotic.
Yeah.
I know he's very regimented. But he's very type A.
In the end, to keep a relationship going psychologically, you got to be invested both 110%. Yes. Right now, John Cena's transitioning to do stuff away from the ring and things like that. He's busy.
He's really focusing on his movie.
They're not
career.
together as much, and Nikki Bella's now in a position where she wants to settle down in family, and she's starting her own business. And the other part that people have now noticed too is that Nikki Bella wants her own identity. And when you're with a guy at the level of John Cena, really in the end, no matter what she did, unless she became president, really in the end, anything she did, she was just going to be, John Cena's side piece.
Who's John Cena going to hook up with next, do you think?
Oh, man. I don't know.
Does she have to be as big as him?
Yeah.
Like star-wise, star power-wise. Does she have to be that big?
Maybe. A-lister?
Yeah.
Man, that'd be interesting.
Like, he's a good-looking dude, right? Like,
yeah.
What was the movie with Amy Schumer and...
That wasn't Trainwreck, was it? No,
yeah, it was Trainwreck.
Okay.
Yeah, like, so John Cena's in there, and I'm watching that movie. There's like 4 scenes where John Cena's naked, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a great looking dude. Like, he's outstanding looking. Like, look at him naked. Like, the guy's amazing.
Yeah, it might be. Might be an A-lister.
He's a good looking dude, right? I mean, he's a little neurotic, like I just said. Mm-hmm. He's very regimented. He's very type A. So I'm wondering who he could hook up with where they would kind of balance each other a little bit, and it would be fun to somehow get a camera in there and watch that go on. I don't know. All right. So moving on. Matt Riddle, like, it's now official. WWE has signed him to what sounds like a long-term deal.
Matt Riddle, yes.
So he should be the next big thing in WWE. If WWE screws this guy up,
forget about
it. There's something wrong. There's no reason WWE should mess this up. Matt Riddle should do some NXT
Star
work.
power, make some money.
Exactly. Do some NXT work, get the call up, and he should have a belt basically immediately. Like, have him work for it, because everybody gets invested with the struggle to get to the championship, to get to the top. The guy's awesome. You're going to love him. I'm telling you right now, if you've never seen him wrestle, you're going to love him. UFC fighter Cain Velasquez was training at the WWE Performance Center on Tuesday. Now, he's been on record of saying he's wanting to transition into wrestling with his fighting career near its end. So maybe this might be the whole Ronda Rousey path, where he comes in and they basically ride high off of his UFC.
The WWE is now the ground where people go to retire from the UFC.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is, dude.
Holy cow.
Do they love UFC fighters?
Yeah.
UFC fighters and football players, they love them. WWE will be building for a mixed tag match at SummerSlam. What this is looking like, it's going to be Andrade Cien Almas and Selena Vega, who looked smoking hot the other day on SmackDown, versus Rusev and Lana. And you kind of got to see a little bit of this build this past week on SmackDown when Lana and Selena Vega had a match. Almas went to go get involved, and Aiden English came out. It ended up costing Lana the match. Lana's in the back. She tells Rusev, I really needed you there. Where were you? So you can kind of see the groundwork being laid for this. We'll build to this for SummerSlam. I think it's good for both Almas and Vega to go with Rusev and Lana. I think this is interesting. I think this could be good. Any way you can kind of hide some of Lana's shortcomings in the wrestling ring. Now, I thought they had a decent match. It was very short, but I thought it was decent enough. It's good. So this should work out pretty solid. Nia Jax has been pulled off the road due to an injury. At this time of the recording, we're unsure what the injury is and when we can expect her back. She was on Instagram posting weird GIFs, basically mocking WWE and certain wrestlers. Sounds like she does have a lot of real-life heat with a lot of different people in WWE. Mickie James is also dealing with injury. That's why she was absent from Monday Night Raw. Now, New Japan. We kind of teased this in the beginning. New Japan is going after Gallows and Anderson, but they are making a monster push for Nakamura. Now, their contracts are set to expire early next year. You have to remember, Nakamura, Gallows and Anderson, and AJ Styles all came in at the same time. New Japan really wants Nakamura because of the publication from WWE.
Yeah.
They think that he would be a great marketing tool for them to sit there and crack into the United States. They've already been here, but they really want to expand their footprint in the U.S., and they feel like they could really strap a rocket to this guy's back, bring him back, and just kind of flood the U.S. with him. Gallows and Anderson, they're not really getting used,
right.
And there's nothing really going on with those guys, so it might be best for them to go back to New Japan. Also, rumor is The Rock may want to do a match at WrestleMania 35. Now, this all depends on his movie schedule. Now, the movie companies don't like to allow him to wrestle because he ended up tearing his pec when he wrestled John Cena a few WrestleManias ago, and it ended up costing the production of Hercules millions and millions of dollars because they had to stop and wait for him to get better. So The Rock may be doing a match at WrestleMania. Could you see The Rock versus Roman Reigns? Roman Reigns gets the rub from beating The Rock.
Oh, that would be awesome. That'd be nice to see. I'd like to see him bigger, man. AJ Styles and The Rock. Why not?
Ooh.
Dream match.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. All right, so Cedric Alexander and Ty Dillinger are getting the wrong kind of attention for some previous
They didn't
tweets.
scrub?
No, they did not scrub. We talked about this on the Doc and Jock podcast. Check that out every single Thursday right here on this very network. Talking all kinds of things, Detroit sports and national sports this week. They did not scrub their Twitter, and they had some tweets regarding rape. Both made references to it not being rape if you yell surprise. So surprise, it's not rape. They have since come out and they have apologized for this. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially in light of everything that's going on with the Me Too movement. You got things going on in Ohio State with Urban Meyer. It's going to be interesting to see how WWE handles this, especially in the climate that is known as today.
Definitely not a perfect 10 way of handling social media.
Not at all. All right, so Jim Caldwell has been hired, former Detroit Lions football coach. Jim Caldwell has been hired as a consultant for the XFL. Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Now the big news. So Matt Hardy, not really sure what's going on with him. This is the second. So now I have to take this serious because this is the second time he's posted something kind of cryptic to Twitter. Matt Hardy posts again with an odd reference to possibly his retirement.
Well, dude's old, man. He's got to start looking at it.
He's got the Jimmy legs.
Yeah.
From breaking his hip. All right, so this is what he posted in his tweet.
Okay.
To all that supported me in the Independents and Omega, to the fans of Team Extreme, to the Mattitude followers, to the outspoken fans who brought me back in 2005, to the people who backed me when I was reincarnated in pro wrestling, to the Woken Warriors. Thank you. Now again, second week in a row where he's posted something cryptic. It seems like the 43-year-old is beginning to lay the groundwork for his exit from WWE. I'm not sure what's going to happen to him. I'm not sure if it's a health issue. I'm not really sure what's going on here. It's just, it's really weird. Maybe there's something going on with him and Bray Wyatt. Maybe this is all, I don't know.
Maybe a character change,
it could
something.
Be anything. I'm not really sure. But again, second week in a row he's done it, so now I've got to actually talk about it because the first one I was like, all right, whatever. I can't really validate any of this. But second time.
We'll see how the feuds continue at SummerSlam and maybe into the next pay-per-views and see where it goes. If he maybe gets written off television with an injury or something along the lines where if Bray turns on him, he destroys him or something like that. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm not sure what's up there.
Great podcast, sir. Always enjoy recapping wrestling. Thank you so much for the time. Congrats again to the Breaking Down the Ring podcast. They recently celebrated 100 episodes. You did great on that podcast.
Oh,
you guys had a good time with it.
I don't feel like I bring anything to that show.
The most inappropriate wrestling podcast. You can follow them at BDRcast. Huge props to Dennis Farrell. Continues to have high rankings each and every week with his Wrestling Perspective podcast. Check out his work, Dennis Farrell, on Twitter at Dennis77Farrell. Go to his website, WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. Dennis is in the know, has great wrestling insight, and he works with wrestlers who like the podcast, P.D. Williams and James Ellsworth. So you get some inside information, contract talk, a little bit of insight regarding what goes on at Impact and at WWE. Good stuff.
They always have a lot of guests on their shows. A lot of guys from Impact.
Yep.
And he was just at Slammiversary, basically rubbing P.D. Williams down. So, lucky for Dennis, right?
WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. Support those who support us. The Breaking Down the Ring podcast airs every Wednesday, 9:15 or so on the Podcast Detroit app. Check it out. All good stuff, and we definitely appreciate those who have supported us. See everybody next time.
And check out Breaking Down the Ring's YouTube page. They post all of their old podcasts. They post them to YouTube, so check that out as well. Give that a like and a follow.
See everybody next time. Thank you so much. Check us out at Detroit Podcast. See everybody next week.